So it's time for the annual tier list, and while the list of stuff I've gone through might look long, like a third of it is like short titles, I'm still reading a few. If I finish them, like I'll slap them at the end or something, I don't know. Usually the blog post and the video are like different for these. Like I generally put like the tier list at the end of the post, but I never really put what I put in the blog thing on the video. Think of it like movie previews or whatever, same thing. So like before the tier list, these are the ones that I like the most in terms of like writing, and these are like the runner-ups of it. And these are like the weird ones out where it's like, hey, I think it's cool, but there's a lot of like things that are bugging me about it as well. And these are the ones where I had a lot of fun reading. Usually has something to do with the plot. Like it isn't amazing or whatever, but it's like probably goofy to the point that I really liked it. It's like it was enjoyable. And these are the ones I'm kind of disappointed in. Like half of them are pretty much fine, but it's also at the same time, it's like, you could have been a lot better than this. So onto the tier list. I won't really go too much into the settings because the video would be over like 2 hours long, and I'm not doing that. I'll talk about it in some of them, but otherwise I'll just put like the VNV like synopsis on the side or something. Some of these I already have videos for, and some I have something written about it, but they just haven't been pushed out. I'll put like a mark or something on the cover with the synopsis as well. So Dead Days is a weird one where the setting's cool, but it gets fucked up by all like the H scenes I just shoved up into my ass, right? Basically, your guy wakes up in the van and there's like a couple other people in there, and you get a call and you get like, hey, kill this guy, right? And they refuse, and all the characters refuse, but then they get told like, hey, technically you're already dead, and if you don't kill this guy, you run out of energy and you just perma die. So the only way to do is like, hey, go do what I told you to do. So they do it, right? And it's like, oh shit, the battery's actually going up, and the drawback is like, hey, all your energy's back up now, but you're mega horny, so now you gotta bang all the time. And that's honestly fine, but after like 2 instances of this, they skipped the part of like killing the creatures and just do the porns. Like the interesting part was the action scenes and all chasing them and all everything, not the porn. That's whatever. And most of the routes have some kind of impact to them, but really it's the main 2 guys that carry the title in the true route. And I'm giving it like a high 6, maybe even like a 7 if you're into the H scenes. If based on like the best impact moments, then it probably reached like a high 8. It was really cool when it actually happened, but again, that's the finale. And if you want to do the other routes, like, well, some of it's boring, some of it's fine. But again, is by the end, and you have to go through a couple H scenes for that, and there's a couple like bad endings you have to go through, and those are also either really boring, except one. I like that one a lot, but the first branch point of ends, like, wow, this is ass. Who decided to do this? Hatsuyuki Sakura started out strong, and then they're forced into like to do a lot of these routes, and they vary in quality, and some of them are ass, some of them are fine, but at the same time, when you question why you're even here doing these things, it's more like the sake of having routes than actually having a purpose more often than not. The important bits are great, but they're deluged by everything else. There's like a common route, then I actually liked, and then a shit ton of required routes that each have like maybe 20 minutes of something important, and then like common route 2, and then the finale. And the main character was carrying the title for a huge amount of time with all its like brutish humor, but even that gets tiring after a bit. It's like, holy crap, you're going through this for multiple routes. There's just specifically one route where it's like, you as a character aren't even important. It's like what's happening in the back end from your route. You itself is hugely unimportant. The music is top notch and the finale is great, and it's one of those titles where people forget about all like the shit that's happening in the middle of it because the ending's actually great. And yet with all the shit I just said, I'm putting it as a 7. Probably should even put it as a high 7, but I'm not right now. If it was relatively lean down, I'd probably put that to like a high 8. But again, all these routes, they're not important. I'm putting Hungry Lamb at a 7. It could have been higher if I had more like a budget to it. Like I get what the lead up to the 2 final endings were going for. It just didn't really put me in the mood that it wanted me to be in it, and it didn't initially grip me, right? It's like if a couple of strings broke when you're playing your best violin piece. It's like, too bad. The funny thing is one of the bad endings ended up being my favorite ending, so I know they can write, it didn't work for me. For the most part, the title is concise, and I'm pretty partial to that. Some of these do go on for a while. So for Konosuba Snow Presents, I wrote about this and a couple other things as like a combo, but that's been pushed out by now, maybe next year. And I disliked this one quite a bit because I felt like they tried to convert whatever they were going to do into like, hey, let's just put Konosuba in here for some extra sales. This is more like a tech demo that shows like their 3D stuff and what they can do with the ASMR stuff. And then actually being like, it's not a fan, it's about Kotori, just any random character could be used as this, right? Like the best part of this title is like when the duck is around, like, hey, finally a character from the original title. I'm putting this as a 5. There was fun moments here and there, but it just feels too much like a demo of what's possible, and then just slapping a decent amount of H scenes in it. And it's like, hey, here's Kotori, have fun. And it's like, this could have been any random person, any random character. It didn't change much. I'll be doing all the parts of Fan the Trigger at once. This is like that Devil May Cry :DMC where the game could have gotten a lot better chance if it was called something else. Like outside of a few minor points, it really didn't need to be attached to the Grisaia name. And that's like, they could have just changed the names of those characters or something and it'd be fine. Some of the parts are great, but generally that means Rena wasn't around much during those scenes. Ren is the bane of the series for me because seeing her almost guarantees a whole fucking section of her talking about some random food. And it happens quite a lot, but it's one of those things where you'll eventually forget those parts in the future. So like maybe Rena wasn't that bad, but since I wrote about it, I know Rena was a piece of shit. There's really no female lead this time around and it kind of suffers for it. Most parts focus on one character to the point that the plot doesn't really start happening till like chapter 6 or even 7. It's mostly exposition all the time. New members get introduced, but I wouldn't call them important either. More that they were shoved into a scene that made them important for like a few minutes and that's it. I think chapter 5 was great and I had a lot of fun with like 6, I believe. Technically the last chapter has the best moments, but it's also a lot longer than the rest as well. I'd say the first half of it is better, but it'd be all spoilers for that. And I get it. I'm already making a video for it, so whatever. I think chapter 2 and 4 has their moments and 5.5 has like a greatest setup that was like left to waste. It was never used at all. To the point it might as well have been like an extra minute slapped onto like the beginning of chapter 7. It's like, why? Why did you make me waste another like 2 hours? Like chapter 8 in the beginning, or like the first half, it reminded me of like Angelic Howl from the original title. It's like, hey, this is great. I like this one a lot. And it's like, this is why I liked 8 a lot as well. Halfway through, it's like, oh, now a lot of coincidences happen. And you're like, maybe not for me. But one of the endings, actually, I liked it a lot as well. But yeah, it's, you know, mostly an 8 for the last one. And the other ones are all around except for, I believe, was it 4? Which I also liked a lot. Angelic Chaos Reboot is just like a classic Ubisoft title where they put a lot of effort on the voice acting and the art, but there's not really much going on in terms of plot. It's one of those like, hey, there's a setup, but we're barely going to use it, or we're going to forget about it after the common route type of thing. I'd probably say this is one of their weaker titles, but if you like one of the characters, it's still pretty entertaining. I will say the comedy does feel like it took a nosedive compared to some of the other previous titles. The ED jokes were funny for a bit, but they ran that to the ground as well. It's like, okay, we don't need every route to have this kind of thing. It's fine. My favorite route was Orie, one of the side characters, and I think the other side character is probably the worst route from what I remember. Kurumi's probably the majority's favorite, or maybe like the sister or something. But yeah, I think I'm just going to put this as a 6 and nothing else. It's fine. It's just, there's nothing in there that I was like, hey, I'll recommend this to people. It's like, no, there's nothing here. I had a lot of fun with Geminism, but also kind of one of those weird ones where the best characters are just the guys acting like they're theater kids. It's a lot more fun if you read like Magic Way already, since one of the guys is basically just an alternate reality version of June. It's basically the same guy, it's the same voice actor, it's the same mannerisms, holy crap. And that's why I liked it a lot. The plot is split between the perspectives of like the first girl and the second girl. I think the second one's Shinku and the first one's Kikyo or whatever. Kikyo is a real whiner, which can pull you out of the plot a lot, but it's also one of those things where the ending was well executed. Even though you know what's going to happen early on, it's like, it's fine. I'm putting this as 7, but in terms of like personal bias, I'd probably guess, you know, with all these moments that I liked, I'd probably put it as an 8, maybe a low 8 at the most. But yeah, around the 7. Hentai Prison probably holds one of the most boring sections about VNs that I've read ever, and it's still like an 8 to me, or even like a high 8. The humor's a lot more subdued compared to the Nukatashi ones, and that's great for me considering I found that one like obnoxious at times. It was like a joke that got driven to the ground, and just kept on going. It was going underground. Holy crap. The beginning sections of Hentai Prison's finale could have been heavily like leaned down as well, but overall it's one of those titles that was written really well. It's like a Muramasa or Rose Gun Days where it uses a lot of different movie ideas for each section or route, and yet it overall works great together. Taika, I forgot her how she pronounced it, was one like the most fun out of the 3 routes. She has her own posse, and that forced the main character to have more interactions with like all these other people, and it was great. But really, it's like Nukatashi where the finale's why people would read this. Really, like on my bias, this is more of a high 8. Maybe a low 9, but that's kind of pushing it. There's just not a lot of stuff I put like as an 8 this year, so I'm not like doing like extra sections for it. So each thing should be 8. Dairoku is an Otomi that had an interesting setting and had a lot of potential and even some decent moments, but overall was really boring to middling at best. I wrote about it, but it never got pushed out, but I'm pretty sure I called the title, like the title I had for it was like King of Mid. Holy shit. I kind of want to put it as like a 5, but it's not the worst of the year. It's still fine to read and there's nothing awful on it. It's one of those where it's worse than a bad title just because it's so bland. Like, imagine if that was the first otome you got to read. You just like get turned off and never read any other otomes. It's like, that's why I put this so low. The setting is cool, but the main character's horrendously boring. Like, people complain about how nothing of a character some of these like main guys are in the Omoi titles, but at least they can be dumb or like or be funny or have some kind of laugh at them. She just does nothing for the actual title. She's not horrendous, it's just really dull. She's not off plots like a character. There's no character trait on her. It's like, she's a piece of shit. It's like, no, she's very dull. Honestly, I picked it up because the cover looked really cool. I guess out of the bunch, I really liked Shidatsuki or whatever the most, but Hida probably has like the better endings. Overall, I would never recommend this one. Because there's so many other good otomes you can read. It's like, why would you? You have to be desperate to read this one, I guess. The funny thing is, I actually wrote about NYONINJIMA as a combo. I think the Konosuba FD was part of it, right? And this one was actually the more interesting ones in the batch. It had something going on and they just forget about it for like all the porn. And it's like, yeah, this is a Nukage, right? What did you expect? But the guy didn't start as a horn dog, and it did look like the owner had some kind of like something going on in the back for the protagonist. Like, hey, it could have been like a sinister idea, or could have been just like, hey, he could be a good guy, and that was shown already, right? Really, I thought it was simple. I thought it was gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be like a political thing. It's like, hey, all these people are gonna be counted as votes and I'm gonna be the governor or whatever. It could have been like a degradation of a person's way of thinking when nobody else was like helps reinforce it, because he's forced alone in this island with everybody else's way of living, and it's completely different and like hedonistic and shit. And it's like, hey, maybe it's that. It's like someone was secretly like trying to insert a plot or like a subplot, but got reprimanded halfway through. It's like, holy shit, you can't, this is a porn game, what are you doing? It's like, oh, my bad, boss, right? On a side note, I picked it up for a specific character, but ended up being that she was only for one scene. It's like, oh, piece of shit. It's like, where did Hoop Earring Lady go? She was the hottest one, and it's like, she's not there anymore. It's like, holy crap. That's also when the pacing between the island setup and the H scenes got wrecked. It's like, it's all H scenes after this point. It became like just a parade of H scenes. And as a porn title, and I could give this like a 7, maybe an 8. Some of the art's kind of weird looking, and you know, like some scenes were like dragged on for far too long, and some are kind of boring, but that's more on, it kind of went downhill and I lost my patience on it halfway through. The host mom section, it was like, hey, it was pretty good in the first half, and it's like, oh, now it's like, oh, it's kind of shit. And then the third round was awful. So not only did the inkling of plot vanish, but also like the H scene quality for me like went down. It's like, oh, what happened, right? I'm sure if the Hoop Lady was around, my bias would be like, hey, still good, shut up, still good, but it's like, she's not there. So it's like a 6 for me, which is really sad when I got more out of it than Dairoku. But you know, since, you know, just porn title, just raise it up a bit. It could even be a 7. I'm putting a 6 plus probably. 9 Rip is a weird one where I could put as a 9 if I only read one specific route, but there's 9 routes that vary wildly. Considering 8 routes are available straight from the start, there's a bit of repetition. The main character is once again one of the worst parts of the title. She's kind of boring, but the multiple settings more than balanced it out for this one. The issue is what she's having trouble with is the same on all 8 routes, or rather, she has her immediate troubles like, oh shit, how do I get out of this? How do I stay alive? And it's like, oh, then the second issue, which is the one that's repetitive, where it's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do for my career or for my future, and it's always the same. It's like, you're in hell right now. Can you not think about that at all? So really, like, after the second route or whatever, maybe the third route, I guess, is like, are you still on about this? Holy crap, you're annoying. So yeah, it's split into 4 settings, and each setting has their own 2 routes, except the final route shares one of the settings as well. So I guess one setting has 3 routes, right? Weirdly enough for me, the one that's centered around getting stuck in the warped version of like their school was the most fun, and normally I complain about the school sections. The sequel came out recently, but I'm not sure if it had sold well enough. I think it did, but I don't know if we'll ever get a TL or not. If it does, maybe I'll take a read, but it's, for now, it's around the 7, but in terms of like momentary impact, I'd give like a high, actually not a high 9, a normal 9. Anyways, it's around a 7 right now, but in terms of like momentary impact or like specific routes, there is 1 or maybe 2. There's one that's like a 9 and one's like a high 8. And the others like, a lot of them are like, hey, high 7s, but some are like, oh, this one's kind of shit. Select Oblige kind of has that common plot thread where your guy gets enrolled into this like high-end school, but instead of the common normal guy, it's the more uncommon guy from the ghetto. And then there's the parts like, hey, the school council is trying to kick him out. It's like, oh, also pretty common, right? Honestly, the common route is pretty much fine, though the routes kind of suck here and there. Either they don't have a lot going on, and some have like weird pacing issues, where the climactic scenes get resolved in under a minute. It's like, why? That was so awful. The TL quality was also like MTL tier at times, especially during the H scenes. Not like it was great outside of that. I remember a decent amount of typos, and a lot of things were like, I had to take a moment to figure out who they're even talking to, because they mess up the genders a lot. I think after the quality stops after like the common rounds, like a lot of things get shit on or something. But overall, it's like, it was still readable, it's fine, except for the H. So those are really funny. I made like a thing about it. It's not, I don't think I pushed it out, and like I think half of it was just making fun of that. I think Kukuru got like one of the polling awards for like best heroine route or whatever, and honestly it's a sad year she got that award. Like, really? This one? Like, she's not bad, but number one? But then again, it's like somehow a fucking porn title got the grand award. It's like, ooh, why? Moe Awards, porn titles. I'm giving it a 6, maybe a little higher if the TL like was better, but even then the plot kind of nosedives anyway. I don't think the TL would ever save it. Like, the main character just becomes more normal instead of like what he was at the start. It's very, not edgy, but rough around the edges and all that. And it's like, hey, it was interesting for that. And it's like, oh, it's a normal guy. And it's like, not completely. And you know, there's some routes here and there where it's like, hey, he's still like a tough asshole, but then sometimes it's like just normal. I'm like, there's a lot of these. I don't care about this anymore. Dreamlike Love would say it as another porn title, and it was like $6 or whatever, and the art was pretty well done. I was like, hey, why not? Let's see what I can get from this. And the funny thing is, the side plot was actually entertaining, where it's just the main character and this new guy at work become friends, and it's like, this is nice. And it's just the main guy shitting on the new guy, because the new guy's like always making problems, and then it's like the half of the plot line in the beginning is like, hey, you know, you were also a new guy at once, and you didn't get any help, right? It's like, yeah, I didn't. It's like, all right, you can be like a role model, you could be helping him. And it's like, yeah, you're right, let's do this. And it's every time like, all right, let's go back to talk with the maid. I'm like, fuck the maid, man, I want to talk to the coworker again. And there's like another plot point where it's something like an antagonist, but nothing really came out of it. It's like, okay, why was this here? It's kind of bizarre, and it's why I want to lower to a 6. It's like, holy crap, it's like, why? Some of it's padded. Some of the H scenes either go way too long, or just like alternate scenes of the other things I've ever seen before. Not from like other titles, like from the same fucking VN, right? There's really not much I can complain about. It's giving exactly what you assume it'd be. So I'm pushing it to like a high 6. It's fine. Raillore split between two main characters like how it was done in Sorcery Jokers, except this time both characters are actually interesting. Sure, Grey Drake is a lot more entertaining, and even his chasings are way better than Reino's, but Reino's still a fine protagonist, right? The plot isn't anything to write home about, but it's still entertaining, where it's all about the combat and then moving the sprites all around to try and make the scene more fluid. It's like, alright, this is cool. Haven't seen this much happening. So like, alright, something new. Overall, it's a title that's more about turning your brain off and just having fun instead of having something like thought-provoking. It tries to be something, but it doesn't even hit what like Sorcery Jokers tried to do as well. So like, on the upside, both these guys are way better than Haruto as well. So at least it's something. This is kind of linked to like Jokers as well. Pretty sure this is like a distant like prequel or something. So I'm putting this like a low 7 or whatever. It's like, hey, it was fun. I read it pretty fast. Sure, some parts could have been taken out. I think the last, not the last, like I think it was the penultimate chapter, was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but it's fine. I know, I like, you can see what they're trying to do. Just like, again, it was like emotionally gripping or whatever, but it's like everything was cool. At least it was really cool. I read Red Bell's Lament because it's from the same brand that handled like Even If Tempest, and I found that nowhere near as charming as the Tempest one, but still entertaining in its own way. The main character and a bunch of other like vampire hunters got employed by like the king to get into like this vampire world to retrieve the kidnapped prince. And it's like, all right, normal setup, all right, cool. And it becomes a whole mess where X or Y dies from your team, and then the whole like world resets, and you're trying to like different choices or different ideas or different pathways, but you randomly go back and forth between all these like different like timelines that you failed before. It's like, hey, it's cool. I'm putting it as a like low 7. There's nothing super impactful in it, and they end up adding like another route after the finale, and maybe you like that ending more, maybe you like the original ending more, and that kind of fucks it up here and there. And you know, there's also some bad endings where, and some of them are like, hey, these are actually better than the good endings, or at least better written, right? I wrote about it, but I haven't pushed that out yet as well. Really, I go back and forth between like a low and a normal 7 on this one. Kinsenka is from the same guy that wrote Irusukai, and it has the same problem where you have to go through a lot of dull moments to reach the finale that's really well done. I'd still say it just kind of still does like a way better job of it, and that's kind of funny considering it's also like only part 1, I guess. There's like a massive amount of padding, and there's flashbacks and repetitions, and it feels like it's afraid of people not noticing the theme of it, and they just keep on repeating it. I'm putting it at like a low 7 where the high points really carry all the negative aspects I have for it. And it's like, you really don't deserve this high 7, I think, but if you take it all out, hey, it would be a decent 8. You can still write, it just, he pads on a lot for no reason. Futamata is kind of weird because it's not balls to the wall crazy like the rest of the Asa project titles, but unlike Goei where it hit like a sweet spot, right? And this one just felt like kind of boring a lot of the times. I did like Rui, and if I only play like that one route and I grade as like a Moe title, I put it like an 8, but otherwise it's just a 6. I think Yu is a good representation of the title where when it works, it's pretty funny, but more often than not, you're just fucking annoying. Iwakura kind of fumbles, but I still liked it. Like at first you think it's a mystery genre thing, because there's this mansion and there's hosts and you like creepy shit's happening, but after like the first 2 chapters, most of everything can be understood. Like, all right, everything's already kind of revealed. Like they weren't even trying to hide it or anything, and then it's like, all right, this is done, now let's focus on the Yuri more often than not. But the Yuri was honestly boring, and I was just hoping for the host to go crazy faster and fuck everything up, to like, hey, let's move the plot again. But it's like, no, let's have more Yuri moments. It's like, I have to look at my list. I think I've read like 3 or 4 Yuri titles, and all of them are boring. I think I even dropped Flowers once. It's like I read like an hour, I was like, this is boring, bye. So I'm giving it a low 7. The art is top tier, and in my opinion, so was the soundtrack. It's way better than the plot for me. These are the last 2 chapters of Liminal Border. I think the third one's actually pretty well written, but in terms of bias, I didn't really care for the girl in the section that I was focusing on. It also starts where the plot eventually leads up to, and while it makes sense and it's well written, it's also it's like the boring choice. I think the way to explain is that it didn't emotionally grip me like I thought it would, and it followed the more like expected paths. Like, you could tell what's going to happen. Like in my mind, there was like 2 ways of this handling it, and it's like, this is the normal way. It's like, all right, if you don't care about it, this is how it is. So I'm putting Third Offense at like a high 7, but I assume most people would probably put it as an 8, and the Life Sentence is more of a 6 to maybe high 6. Part of it felt padded, and that's kind of funny considering it's already like only 3 hours long, maybe 4 hours long. So how are you padded when it's only the already short title? What the fuck? I think ATRI is kind of like Ginka, where everybody I talked to about it, like one part and disliked the other parts. But everybody I talked to had like a different opinion what a good part was. ATRI eventually becomes really great, but I had to go through all like slice of life scenes and like, holy, there's so many, and I didn't really care about any of them. And it just goes back and forth between the plot that I actually liked and the relationships between the 2 main characters and like the rest of the cast. And one guy had like a chameleon eyes, like, why your eyes look weird? And it's like, oh, I'm like, I don't care about any of you people. It's just one of those things where I felt like it refused to leave the Moe sections. I just like, no, these are what people want, and then I'm just there like, that's not what I want. But I understand most people, I probably do want this the most. So I'm giving it a high 7, though I kind of wanted to place it down to like a 7 for bias sakes. Like, it did annoy me with all the Moe sections, but you know, everything else in it, hey, it was done pretty darn well. So like, I can't really complain. So for Virche Evermore Epic Lycoris, this is the FD, right? I don't think my video came out yet. It's probably gonna be after this one. This is one of my favorite titles this year, and it's just a fucking fandom that just refuses to stop. There's extra despair endings. There's after stories to the original despair endings as well. And like, hey, there's an after story for the salvation ending. There's like 40 extra scenes that cover random bad endings that you've seen in the original one as well. There's scenes that cover like X character and what he was thinking about in specific times in the original title. There's extra shit from all these other characters. Hey, you barely talked to the butler before. Here's more scenes with the butler. Like, hey, this is awesome. And then there's like the part with the original character that you never interacted with from the previous title, as well as the Drifter. And then there's a whole new section for Anko, or Anku, I think is he's pronounced, that led to his own pretty cool despair ending, but also perfectly fine happy ending. It's like, hey, the art's still freaking top tier. It's just something that kept going and rarely felt like it was getting padded at all. And there's parts that I actually wasn't a fan of, but it's still honestly pretty rare. It's like, I still don't like Mathis at all, but even then, it's like, even his parts these parts are kind of fine. I just don't like you. As a standalone, I'm giving this like a high 8. And as a fan list for people that were like major fans of the original title, this is a fucking 10. I don't think you can do better than this shit. Sure, maybe you might not like how like, oh, why did you present this X character this way? Why is this guy that was kind of an asshole now having some kind of okay? Why is Mathis kind of shit on sometimes? And I'm like, hey, shit on Mathis more often, thank you. But overall, you can't really be negative about this title. It's fine. I think it was great. Shuten Order kind of gets carried by the finale. In terms of marketing, having all these routes open and having each route having like its own gameplay is fucking great. But then some of it's like kind of padding, but it's like, hey, if you start the plot anywhere, same plot points every here and there, right? And there's probably at least one style you don't enjoy, and so have to go through to hit the finale. And I'd say like there's specific routes where they're better off done later on, or messes up some of your enjoyment as well, because now you know like all these like things that should be hidden for at least the first couple hours, right? So probably great for sales, but not for the score. Like most of the characters are surface deep, and you'll end up liking who you like from the start, and instead of like later on, there's no characters like, hey, this character changed so much and now I like him, or this character changed so much and now he's a piece of shit. It's like for the most part, it's like they stay the same. Not all of them, but maybe around like 80% of them. Like I liked Inugami the most from like the 5 ministers, and he barely changed. And honestly, it's probably a good thing for me, right? I'm putting this as 7, but I think it's more like accessible to the wider audience considering the brand and all that. So it's probably going to be more like an 8 for most people. And it's like, hey, a lot of times what you think about is actually the finale, nothing else. And the finale was great. So maybe some people put it as a 9. I don't know. Sainoto was always like one of those things I pushed off to read like later, because I knew what it was going to be. I think for the most part, I was like, oh, it's going to be like this. And I was like, oh, but what if it's going to be shit? And you know, so many people like this one, and I'm just going to shit on all the time. But I kind of do that sometimes anyway, so whatever. And it was actually fine. The stuff I knew were basically things that they basically outright tell you from the start. There's parts where I find it questionable in the sense of why was this needed, or this specific scenario should technically never work with how like the power structure is. Like it would never happen. A lot of the characters are still kind of like one note, but I don't think they're meant to be anything outside of like plot tools anyway. I can see why a lot of people put it as like an 8. It's around the same for me. If it wasn't like for a few parts, like parts of it could have been scrapped and added like an extra hour for like the initial couple of days from the hospital. It's like, hey, that would be interesting, but like, no, let's focus on the isolation aspect. And that's what they did. It's, hey, it was well written for it. There's the weird things like, okay, why was this here, right? This will probably be one of those titles that go back and forth between like a low 8 and a high 7. The first Mouse game is kind of weird in the sense that I had fun with it, but also nothing remotely amazing happened at all. It was like a fun time waster. There's nothing in here that like forces you to make like leaps of logic for, nor did it feel like it was babying you a considerable chunk of time like I did from one of the Grand Ace Attorney ones. But there's also like no impactful moments either, like in the original 3, and the timeline's horrendous, where it goes like, hey, chapter 1, but then chapter 2 is before chapter 1, and chapter 3 is after chapter 2 but before chapter 1, and chapter 4 is before everything, and chapter 5 is finally in the future. It's like, oh, why? And you know, Ace Attorney actually does this like a decent amount, but this one was like the worst one from what I remember. But then again, there was no like circus section here, so better than that. So in the end, this one was like, hey, that was fun, and I just placed as like a high 6. It was entertaining, the plot was fine. Of course, this is still like a lead up to the next one, I believe. That's how it always is. So it's like generally the first titles is always the weaker ones, where it's like, it's kind of whatever. I'd say the Goei FD is not as funny as the base title, but still pretty funny on its own. The main route kind of carries it again, but there's an extra route after finishing it all, and it's kind of like Grisaia 2, where just showing the like protagonist's past, and it was pretty cool. Specific parts were like kind of long-winded, but overall it's pretty neat addition outside of like near the end, where it was just kind of anticlimactic. And honestly, I don't think that shit actually happened, and they'll show like, oh, actually this is what was happening in the sequel. But it's also gonna be one of those things where like, wow, that was dumb. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be one of those. I was ready to put this as like a normal 6, but the last part really bumped it up to like a low 7. So now I'm basically just restructuring everything. I'm probably speeding up the footage because I don't really care. So now it's going to be like, oh, here's the one that if I rate it by like impact, or like, hey, this had really cool scenes, or actually many cool scenes depending on it is, or it's like a very good momentum scene or something that's like, holy shit, this is amazing type of thing. And this one's more based on my bias, where it's like, it's a little bit of everything, but a lot of things like, hey, I might like this one, and I might also be like, hey, I know a lot of people won't like it all that much, but I like it. And that's about it.